Welcome back to Friar Talk, everyone. This is Matt today, just doing a solo stream, but I wanted to talk about the trade deadline. I'm currently abroad, so you're probably not going to see me for about a week and a half. Chase and Isaac, they'll probably put a couple of things out. Might be going live next week, and I am not exactly sure. But however, I want to talk about this trade deadline. Wanted to get my thoughts out. Isaac did break down the Rich Hill, Hill and Choi trade a little bit. He went live during the actual deadline, but then the Padres come in late and they make a couple moves. So I want to talk about these moves, and I want to talk about what I think about the rest of the season for the Padres, since I'm not going to be talking about the team for a little bit. So I want to get my thoughts out right now on this whole deal with them. So let's break down the trades first, then I'll kind of talk about where they are in the wild card race after that. So let's just get it kicked off, go over each trade first. So first trade the Padres make like 5 hours before the trade deadline ended. Rich Hill and Ji-Man Choi for Jackson Wolf. And then two other low-end prospects. Alfonso Rios was one of them, and then an outfield prospect. I think you pronounce it Esturio Serio. I'm not exactly sure, but Jackson Wolf is the main piece there. We've seen Alfonso Rios a little bit. Not much on the Padres prospect in there. They're basically getting Rich Hill for depth, and Ji-Man Choi is, I don't want to say he's a great upgrade, but he's definitely an upgrade over Matt Carpenter. So I like the move there. Makes sense. Super low end. Jackson Wolf, while we did see him in the MLB this year, and he looked really good in Double-A, when he was in MLB, when he played for the Padres that game, he did not look good. I mean, his fastball was basically sitting at 89. He generated almost no swings and misses, and while he can improve, I do think that was enough for the Padres to be like, hey, we think this guy at most is a back-end starter. We're not really sure what he's going to be able to become. So I'm not really too concerned about losing that prospect depth. Next trade, Scott Barlow. Padres gave up Henry Williams, who I think was their 10th prospect at the time, and then Jesus Rios, another right-handed pitcher. Henry Williams got drafted, I want to say 2 years ago or a year, maybe like last season. So once again, like, he's a couple years from coming up. I think he could turn into something kind of special. Maybe it could be exciting, but this guy's a few years out. They're not super concerned about him. He's not an elite prospect. He's not a Dylan Lesko, something like that. So once again, not a lot there. Scott Barlow, he's the Royals closer. He's been having a good year. He did pitch last night, but he was having a bad year. Years prior to this, he was really good, and he basically got to the facility super early, ready to go, super pumped to be a part of this team. So I do like this deal. I think Scott Barlow is a good buy low candidate. I've talked about it before when we've talked about the Padres kind of trade situations, that they need to do more buy lowing on pitchers, because Ruben Niebla and this organization is actually able to develop pitchers at a decent rate, actually get, have reclamation projects, stuff like that. You look at last season, you had Garcia, Suarez, and Nick Martinez as 3 reclamation projects, and they were all huge down the stretch for this team. Now, I know Garcia's fallen off, and I know Martinez has fallen off this year, but last year they were huge for that playoff stretch. So you will find reclamation projects. It can work out pretty well. I think Scott Barlow it's a pretty good deal. And then the final trade, I like this one a lot. You trade Ryan Weathers, and you get Garrett Cooper and Sean Reynolds. Now, Sean Reynolds, I'll talk about him first because Garrett Cooper is a little bit more known. But Sean Reynolds, he's a reliever that throws like around 100 miles an hour. This team, I mean, I don't know if he's going to come up right away, but this team, they need high-end relievers that can throw gas. They don't really have that many power arms, so you get a power arm. He's done pretty good in the minors. And then Garrett Cooper, he's your right-handed first baseman. You got Choi, who's going to be the left-handed guy. You have that platoon there at DH. They can come in at first. Cronenworth has had a really rough year. He has been doing a little bit better over the past week, but this is a good move. I really, really like this. So Garrett Cooper, not the best year from him, but he's had some good years in the past. I mean, he was in 2020, given it's a small year, but also 2021, he was an 850 OPS guy. Last year, 750. This year, he's down to like a 720, and the Marlins just didn't want him, really. I mean, that was really what it came down to. I think I'm trying to puzzle all these trades together, but I want to say they traded for Josh Bell. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but overall, I mean, I think it's a decent pickup. It's an improvement, right? You're trying to improve your DH. You're trying to improve that first base DH spot. That was the biggest priority, in my opinion, besides bullpen arms. And let's look at these 3 deals. Who are the main prospects you're giving up? Jackson Wolf, Henry Williams, and Ryan Weathers. I know Ryan Weathers isn't a prospect anymore. Are we at all worried about those guys? Like, are we at all worried about losing them? I am not. I think overall this is a very good buy low, don't trade a bunch of prospect capital deadline. Get some more depth. I like the depth that they got. They got Rich Hill. I mean, we just saw that Joe Musgrove is dealing with some shoulder fatigue. Michael Walk has been dealing with some shoulder fatigue as well. You get Rich Hill to kind of be the backup guy. Is he exciting? Is he good? No, not really. He's not really exciting at all. None of these moves are going to be like, oh yeah, these are super exciting moves like last season when the Padres were just going crazy at the deadline. But they didn't need to do that. And Chase Isaac and I, none of us wanted them to take big swings. And I don't really think any Padre fans really wanted the team to take, massive swings at the deadline because they're sitting a few games out. So I like this. The whole issue this season has been, yes, there's been a couple guys that have struggled. I mean, Manny Machado struggled early in the year. Xander Bogaerts has been a pretty huge disappointment in this first season here. We'll see how he can turn around. Cronenworth, he's underperformed, but a lot of it was that you had Austin Nola as your catcher for half the season. Your DH spot does nothing, and I just mentioned Jay Cronenworth, but your first base spot does nothing. And then you have the bullpen blowing stuff when the offense finally gets it going. So overall, I mean, I think this is smart. You improve that DH first base spot, that power bat. Choi and Garrett Cooper are both guys that are going to hit some bombs. So I like that. And then you add two relievers, one of them that has been a closer in the past. He's been, a high leverage guy, and he's in a reclamation project kind of situation. And then a younger prospect in Sean Reynolds who throws really hard and is really intriguing. And you're giving up almost nothing. So I really like this deadline. Maybe some people are like feeling that it's really underwhelming or something. Look, that makes sense. If you feel that way, I understand where you're coming from. It wasn't like last year's deadline, but I don't think this team is in a spot to take big swings. I also don't think that they're in a spot to, at least in my opinion, I thought it was fine to trade Hader, but I did not want them to trade Blake Snell. I want them to try to extend Blake Snell, and we're definitely going to get into some extension talk later because a couple other guys that did not do this year, but you're going to want to extend them are Juan Soto and Ha-seong Kim. So those guys, you have them for 2024, but there's going to be some money that you're going to have to figure out where does it go. I don't think Josh Hader fits in that picture. That's why I wasn't going to be that concerned if they let him go. But hey, they want to win. I would rather this organization go after winning by not sacrificing a bunch of prospect capital when you're not in a great spot, but still showing that you're trying to win. Now, I know you can look at it flip side and you could be like, well, the Mets did really good. They traded guys away. The Mets did, but the Mets are also in a different spot. The guys they're trading away are super old. They just weren't a good team. Like, if you look on paper, you look at some of the overall numbers, the Padres have an amazing run differential. And, yes, they have flaws, but they're a really good fielding team. They have really good starting pitching. They have a lot of positive things. They have a lot of players that are playing really well, but there's not depth. There hasn't been depth. And I think this trade deadline, they were able to do that. They were able to go after some depth. And I think overall, in my opinion at least, I really like the deadline. I think it is going to be an overall win. Now, the big question is, and this is what I'm going to, I guess, kind of title this episode is the Padres trade deadline going to be enough to push them into the playoffs? I'm going to start this by saying no. I don't think it's going to be like the reason they make or miss the playoffs. However, could it be a factor that helps them win one or two games that does get them over the edge? Yeah, it could. It definitely could. I mean, right now where we're sitting at, the Padres are sitting 4 games back, and I'm looking at my phone, so anyone watching you guys can probably tell. You're 4 games back right now, right? The Cubs are in front of you, sitting at 2.5. The Diamondbacks are 1 game out. You have the Marlins and the Brewers are tied for that 3rd spot. The Phillies are a half game up on them, and the Giants are 2 games up on them. We've already talked about it before. The Giants have an awfully hard schedule to end the season. I don't know if they're going to be able to hang on to it. If they can get up a few games, maybe, but it is going to be hard for them to stay above and in the wild card spot with how rough their schedule is to end the season. The Marlins, they were buyers. Brewers, I don't remember what the Brewers did. I don't think it was anything super crazy. They're all right, and they are competing for a division as well, but the Diamondbacks have fallen off super hard. The Cubs have been red hot. They didn't trade Cody Bellinger. They didn't trade Stroman, so they're a team that's in there, but Padres are only 4 games back. And they've been playing really good baseball. They've been winning the percentage that they need to win for the rest of the season. And they got some more depth. They got some light reinforcements. The bullpen is going to look better. I like Scott Barlow. I think he's going to be your 7th inning guy. That is so much better than throwing out Nick Martinez. And yes, we have Robert Suarez back. Yes, Steven Wilson's been pretty solid over the course of the season. But having him as your 7th inning guy, and then, and obviously it changes a lot. Everyone wants to be like 7, 8, 9, but that adjusts so much because of who's available and who's not. But having your default 7, 8, 9 of Barlow, Suarez, and Hader, that's really good. And you look at how good the starting pitching's been. Now you, instead of having a spot start every once in a while, you can actually throw in a guy that's pretty good in Rich Hill. Not pretty good. He is so average and boring, and he's old and he's not exciting, but he is better than throwing out a Ryan Weathers. And I think that's where you look at this team and you're happy about it. And, you look at the DH first base spot, it got better. Luis Campusano, Gary Sanchez, when they have been the catchers, the primary catchers, this team has been so much better. And it translates to win. They're like 15 games over 500. I want to say when those guys are the starting catchers. Or maybe it's 12 games. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating. But Gary hit 2 home runs yesterday, so I'm a little bit excited about that. But overall, I think this is a good spot for where this team is at to go and make these minor moves. I was really afraid that I didn't think Preller and Seidler wanted to sell at the deadline, but I was afraid that they were going to buy too much and blow some of their their high-end prospects. And they didn't. And I think that's the smart way to go. This team, this organization has struggled to develop mid to low-level guys. They haven't really done that. Now, the high-end guys, they've traded most of them away, but I think it's better for just where they're at and where they've been at development-wise to hang on to the Dylan Leskos, the Ethan Solaces, those kind of guys, because that's more likely who's going to be able to succeed in this environment, who is going to be able to be cheap contracts because of just their talent, their ability to adjust. And maybe you have to do a little bit more if you're in San Diego and you're in Petco Park from an offensive player to see if you can actually develop at the big league level. But I would rather hang on to those elite guys and trade away your mid-end guys, especially if you haven't proven that you can develop guys at the rate of the Giants, the Rays, the Dodgers, right? Teams like that have just shown we can just churn out, we can make water into wine with our prospects, because we see those teams do that all the time and do it with, not the Dodgers, they obviously have money, but the Giants and the Rays haven't really spent much money and they're able to do that. So they haven't proven that they can do that. Trade those middle end guys. You've seen that Ryan Weathers is not very good. I think this is the dub for the deadline. I don't know how I feel about the Padres' chances to make the playoffs. I'm not going to give you a number. A couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I was like, I don't think this is going to happen. I'm not really having a lot of faith. But I have a little bit more faith, and I'm excited to watch these last couple months of the year. And I'm pumped because they have a true chance, and we're going to get to watch them compete for a playoff spot. And growing up, I never got to watch that. It was 2010, and then the next year was 2020. So I'm very thankful that at least we can watch this team go and compete for a playoff spot, and then you see what happens. That's what it was last year. You go and you play the Mets, I think they were over 100-win team last year. You pull off the upset, and you see what happens. So that's where they're at. They add a little bit. They have the star power. Now they add a little bit of depth. I am happy with what this team did at the deadline. Let me know what you all are thinking. You're probably not going to hear from me for a little bit. Chase and Isaac, I'm sure they'll be on a little bit, but I will be gone for up until mid-August, whatever that Sunday live stream is. So I'll see you all then. But wanted to get my thoughts out on this team, and I'm excited. So I'll talk to you all soon. Have a great rest of your day, and go Padres.